The song Hook by Blues Traveler. John Popper sings the lyrics. It doesn't matter what I say, so long as I sing with inflection. That makes you feel I'll convey some inner truth or vast reflection. It's a fantastic song, and he is singing with inflection, and it sounds emotional when you listen to it. I heard an interview with Radiohead frontman Tom York, and he was explaining to the interviewer that all of the sort of poppy kind of songs that he wanted to write ended up being worthless. And only the times that he was afraid to get on stage and share what was really deep in him were the ended up being the art that was valued by the audience and valued by him. That it was the actual emotion in his songs that made the difference. When you watch behind the scenes footage or interviews of Hollywood actors, some of them are very method actors where they have to be going through the turmoil and trauma of their characters so that they can really convey it. Um, it's is Leonardo DiCaprio really going to be showing more truth to his character if he's in freezing cold water clinging to the door with a real sinking ship behind him, or can they put him in a heated tub and have a CGI ship? Some some Hollywood actors just understand how to make it look like they're going through those those emotions and those sort of inner conflicts. And as writers, we have kind of a similar choice to make. The best fiction has a lot of emotion in it. There are books and authors that just reliably tear me apart, tear me to pieces. And some of those authors I feel must have genuinely been going through those things. When you read, certain when you read books by Kurt Vonnegut, they really genuinely feel like the emotions that are elicited in you come from a place of such deep understanding of those emotions that they must have been true and felt by the author as he was writing them. And there certainly are very popular and uh, well written books where the emotions in them aren't what the author was experiencing at the time they were writing it. Certainly, there's probably genres that are like that, horror genres or thrillers. It's not like you need to be scared to write a book about scary things. So, where does that put us for our emotions and what we put into our art? I have a project I'm working on, and I know what I have to write next, and it's a very sad scene, and I don't want to write it because I don't want to be sad. And it's sort of an interesting. It brought up this interesting idea, at least interesting to me, and I hope you find it as interesting as well. Of do you need to be does your writing need to be expressing the emotion that you're feeling for it to be good and valid art or to convey that emotion effectively to the readers? And I think the songs is an interesting one. The song is a hard one because to get good at a song you have to play it 1,000 times. Well, how much does it really feel like you're going through that pain and emotional breakup or that pain and emotion of a breakup if your boyfriend left you and then you sang the song 1,000 times and now you're on stage singing it for the 1,001st time? Um, are you still feeling it the same? The audience wants to hear that raw emotion, so there needs to be a little bit of acting on behalf of the performer to get that through. Um, but the best songs really do come from a place of those true emotions. So there's a balance to be struck between our sort of acting methods. going through the real thing, enduring those real emotions, experiencing them, and putting on a show performatively to demonstrate them to the audience. When you write a character that's sad and morose, you kind of know, we've all been sad enough and morose enough that you know what it looks like for a person to go through those things. You know what it feels like for a person to go through those things, and we can fake it. But having a little bit of that inside of us really informs, you kind of have to remember what it was like, what you did when you found out that very sad thing, how you sat down in the chair and threw your head into your hands, or stared at the wall and didn't have words, or how you choked up, or a character that's angry, right? It would be very hard to write while you're, like, you gotta amp yourself up and be really angry to write an angry character. Like, we don't really expect that from an author, but you kind of have to understand and have some of that in you to really know how to express that deep sort of vile indignance and just hatred for something or someone or whatever. You have to reflect back on those kinds of things and participate in that emotion a little bit as an author to understand it well enough to convey it. So it's a fine balance to strike there. As a writer or as a creator of any kind of art, how do you put emotional content into something, especially something like writing? Some people will write and edit and rewrite and go over it again and again, and it's akin to practicing a song. The song doesn't just come out fully formed, much like a story doesn't come out just fully formed. If you're writing a poem or a short story or a novel or a screenplay, it might take 100 revisions to get it where you want. Are you going to be tearing yourself apart every time, emotionally, every time? That's unreasonable to think that that's how we write as authors. But how else do we go about it? You have to have some connection to that true emotion. And I don't have a good answer for that. I think there's a balance to be struck, and I think the more of the genuine emotion that you can put through, I think, Thom Yorke to some extent was very right that the times that he wrote a song that was what he had deep down inside him, and he was afraid to say on stage or afraid to sing on stage because it was the most raw emotion he could feel. That's kind of the magic of that music. And John Popper is also right. He can sing with inflection, and it makes you feel like he's going to convey some inner truth or deep reflection, right? They're both right. There certainly are actors who can convey an emotion without having to go through it. There certainly are authors that can convey it, but we each need to find our balance of that. When you have a particularly emotional scene that you have to write, how sad or how angry or how lonely, how joyous do you need to be to share that with your readership at the time that your fingers are actually pressing the keys? Do you need to be elated to show that your character is elated? No. Do you need to be angry to show that your character is angry? No. You do need to understand it and understand what that looks like and know a deep meaning, a deep connection with that emotion that you can express through your characters. And those kinds of things will convey that to your audience much better and be a more meaningful and legitimate connection. I think that's a lot of the reason why we read fictional stories, is to have those meaningful connections and those emotional connections not just with the fictional characters, but with the authors that we know wrote those stories behind them. When you read, uh, a Salman Rushdie book, when you read a Kurt Vonnegut book, you know that there was some pain there that is coming through on the page and was told through the voice of the characters or through the voice of the narrator, but comes from a real genuine place. And although it's unreasonable for us to expect that those authors had a box of Kleenex and were bawling their eyes out at the time they were writing, you know that they at least can reach back into their memory and access some connection with those genuine, real emotions, and that's what they're sharing with us. And we need to find a way to do that with our own access to those emotions, so that we can share that with our readers. I think that's one of the harder things to do as an author. The technical stuff about getting the spelling right is inconsequential. Those we get there. Our editors will help us with that. How we get the readers who are holding our books, who are holding our manuscripts or our poems in their hands, to really have themselves shredded apart by the feelings that we've put into the page. That's the tricky part. I would love to hear how you, fellow writers and readers of fiction, approach this. If there's works that you have found that you think, this guy was just phoning it in, this person was awful, or there's works that you read and you think, man, she really must have been going through it. I'm so glad that she shared that, because now I have that understanding as well. How do you find the balance yourself when you're making your art? How do you take an emotional topic, a topic where, you know, you don't want to write it because you don't want to go through those kind of emotions? Or do you? Are you the sort of character actor, the classical actor, where you can sit there and you know these things are happening to your fictional people, but there is a stone wall between your computer screen and you, and yeah, they're sad, but they're in the page and it's not me. I would love to hear your relationship with this and how your understanding of this informs the artwork that you create and the stories that you read. As always, thank you very much. The more we can broaden this conversation, the better writers we will all be.